This is She Creates Business, a podcast for wedding pros. Your host, Kinsey Roberts, interviews incredible women in the wedding industry who are making their mark and creating success on their terms. Join the conversation.
Well, hey there and happy Tuesday. Welcome to episode 51 of She Creates Business, a podcast for wedding pros. This is your host, Kinsey Roberts. Thanks so much for being with me today. Super excited to have you. Today, I am chatting about a question I get a lot and I see a lot in Facebook groups. I've had quite a few people DM me on Instagram, and I'm talking about what I use to do my podcast. I think the tech piece of being a podcaster really holds people back, and I don't want it to. I'm not going to say that it's easy, especially if you don't know how to use like GarageBand or whatever, but it is easy to learn. That's what I'm saying. And if you are interested in technology at all, then it's going to be even easier for you. So I thought I would do a quick podcast. It's going to be about 20 minutes or so, and just tell you the things I use to put this entire podcast together, because as you may or may not know, I take care of my entire podcast. I do not outsource any piece of my show. I edit it. I do everything. I find my guests. I schedule my guests, all of it. And I enjoy it. And that's not to say that I will never outsource editing, but right now that's what's working in my lifestyle. And I truly believe that what I do on my show, I think it sounds good. It's not certainly not the best podcast ever or the best sound podcast or the best quality podcast ever. But you know what? For what I pay every month to run my podcast, which is very little, I'm super happy with it. So if you've been interested in starting a podcast, but the tech piece is holding you back, stick with me today and let me show you how easy it is to start your podcast. Today's show is brought to you by Podcasting for Creatives, my course on creating a podcast you will be proud of, that you love. If you want to create, publish, and grow your own podcast, if you want to get your voice out there, if you want to provide another free content source for your listeners and for your brides or your couples or, your peers or your mentors, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. It doesn't even have to be business related. This course is for you. I would love to go on that journey with you. I don't think I have to tell you how much I adore podcasting and how much joy it has brought to my life and to my business. It has radically transformed my business, my relationships, and truth be told, it has increased my confidence level by leaps and bounds. I want that for you. If you have ever wanted to start a podcast, head over to bit.ly/let's podcast and let's do it together. It's at bit.ly/let's podcast. Okay, let's get into these tools. And the first thing that I will tell you is that the best way to have a professional sounding podcast is to start with professional gear and to be in a great space to record your show. And the reason I say that is because that mitigates the need for a bunch of editing on the back end. I don't actually edit my show that much because I don't have to. I don't have a bunch of ums and ahs, and also that's just real life. Who doesn't say in real life? I do. And I don't have to mitigate a bunch of echoey sounds because I use a professional mic, and I record in a great space with carpet where there's sound barrier around me, and I'm going to get into that in just a second. But let's start with number one. This sounds like a bigger deal than it is, but it's totally not. Get a professional mic. Take your sound quality from 0 to at least a 6 or a 7, on a scale of 1 to 10, and you can do that in so many ways. A couple of mics that I recommend. I'll tell you the exact one that I use. I use a one called the Blue Yeti. Mine is the whiteout version, so it's completely white. Of course, I picked that for aesthetics. It's completely ridiculous. You do not have to have a white one. So because I chose to get the white one, it's $130. The Blue Yeti itself is only $99 if you get their traditional silver color model, but I got the white one because I am ridiculous. So it's either $99 or $130. You can get it on Amazon. And I absolutely love it. It's so easy. It's a USB plugin. So that means you don't have to plug it into like a speaker or a mixer. All you do is plug it directly into your computer and, fix a couple of controls as far as like Skype. I have it recognize my mic in the preferences. Same with GarageBand. I have that recognize that input. So it uses that mic. And that is it. There's a couple of other mics that you could totally use. There's one called the CAD U37 Studio Condenser Recording Mic. It's only $45. I have not used it yet, but it has great reviews on Amazon and it's less than $50. And the reason I recommend going to Amazon is because they have such a good return policy. Like, they're so customer centric that if you don't like anything you get, you can send it back, even if actually, I don't know. Anyway, you can send it back like for a while. It's amazing. So I always recommend Amazon because it's so easy. Also 2-day free Prime shipping, right? The other one, this is like legit. If you are just getting started and you don't want to spend a bunch of money, is a plug and play USB microphone. It's $20. Seriously, if you could at least get your sound quality up to like a 6, which I think this one will do, you might as well give it a shot. Honestly, I've had guests on my podcast who are just using their phone or just the internal speakers on their computer. And it's not a big deal. I love, as the host, you totally need to have a mic. You might as well, right? It seriously mitigates all of that need for like back-end editing, because you're not trying to edit out echoes or edit out sound imperfections, and because you've started great on the front end. So honestly, if you want to start out with a $20 mic to even see if you like recording podcasts, that's what I would do. Finally, there is one called the ATR 2100. It's $80, so less than $100, and a lot of people use it. I think Megan Mins from the Femtrepreneur show uses an ATR 2100. At least it kind of looks like she does from her photo. And a lot of people use it and they love it. It is a dynamic mic, so it doesn't pick up a lot of background noise. The Yeti mic is called a condenser mic, and it picks up kind of a lot of background. So that way, like if you hear me like tap like right now I'm tapping my mic, if you touch it, you can kind of hear that, but I just try not to touch it. Anyway, so yeah, ATR 2100, that's an $80 mic. All of these are available on Amazon. Those are the prices that I saw on Amazon as the time of this recording. And yeah, professional mic, super easy peasy. Okay. Number 2 is you need a podcast host. And that means it's just like your website. Whether you use Bluehost for your host or Squarespace, a podcast also has a place to live. And I use a place called Libsyn. Libsyn charges as little as $5 a month or as much as $80 a month. I'm right in the middle. I started out with a $15 a month plan. I now have a $40 a month plan because I like to batch my content and then pre-schedule a bunch of podcasts to go out at times that I've selected. You totally don't have to do that. You can select a plan for as little as $5, and they make it so easy to syndicate, syndicate is just a fancy word for put your podcast in other places like iTunes. They make it really easy to syndicate your podcast to places like iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, Google Play. And again, they start for as low as $5 a month. I will tell you, and I'm sure you can guess, that $5 a month is not going to get you very far, because that's like one podcast every 2 weeks. And that's not enough to be growing a show. But like I say, the one I used when I first got started was $15, and it's so easy. They're basically the gold standard of podcast hosts. They make it just being able to put my podcast in like iTunes, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, YouTube directly from my Libsyn account is so easy. So that's number 2, and that is a podcast host. I'm going to click really quickly here because I'm trying to take a peek at my time. Now that I've told you about my mic, you're probably like, what's all this clicking? What's all this background noise? Alrighty, number 3 is Skype. It's free to download and you can use it on any computer. So I don't care if you have a Mac, you have a desktop, you have a Dell, you have a whatever it is. I don't use any of those other ones. I use a Mac, so I think they're called PCs. Skype, you can use it on every computer, even on your phone or your iPad. Not that I recommend that for podcasting, but and it's free, right? I love it. And I only use the audio. I don't use a video call when I'm using Skype. You totally can. I just don't, because it helps keep the sound quality good if it's not trying to run a video too. And there's a couple of other things you can use to record your podcast. There's a tool called Zencastr you can use. That is an online tool, and it records you and your guest separately, which makes it very easy to edit separate audios. They also will do some post-production, which is like sound quality post-production for you for $15 a month, which I feel like is a very good deal. I'm actually thinking of trying out Zencastr myself, so I wanted to make sure I mentioned it on this podcast. It's called Zencastr, and it's spelled Zencastr, Zencastr. Along with Skype, I use a $15 podcast, or if it's not a podcast tool, but it's a call recorder tool called Ecamm Call Recorder. It's called Pamela if you use a PC. If you don't use a Mac, it's called Pamela, but it's the same tool. It's $15 for life. And it goes, you download it and it will match up with your Skype call, your Skype program. And when you open Skype, Ecamm opens, or Pamela. And you just hit record whenever you're ready to hit record, hit stop when you're ready. And mine automatically saves to a folder that I've designated on my desktop. So it's wonderful. And again, like I said, it's only $15 for life, which is amazing. The other thing that you can do is you can use a program called Zoom. So if you don't want to use Pamela/Ecamm and Skype, and you're not really into Zencastr either, you can also use zoom.us, which will give you an audio and an audio/video option, just like Skype. So those are 3 things you can use. Honestly, you guys, just pick the one that's easiest for you. If you don't want to learn a brand new tool like Zencastr, start with Skype and move on. I don't want you to get caught in the paradox of choice. Just pick one and move on, because guess what? Nothing is set in stone and you can always change. I've been podcasting for 7 months with no problems with Skype and Ecamm, and I'm getting ready to maybe try Zencastr because I do love the idea of that post-production for such a low monthly rate. But like I say, pick the one that is easiest for you. I don't want you to get caught up in choices, all right? That's not the point of this. It sounds like a lot, but it really isn't. Okay, what I use to edit my podcasts, if I've used my Skype to record a interview call, or I also record directly into this tool, is GarageBand, which is of course a Mac product. So if you're listening and you have a PC, on your PC you have something probably called Sound Recorder app, or some sort of native sound recorder that you can absolutely use. In the sound recorder app or your native sound recorder, I don't think you have the ability to edit. So you'll have to figure out where your editing software is. But on your GarageBand, you can record directly into and edit in that tool. It automatically comes with any Apple product. It is free to use. And again, I edit very little of my show because ums are real life, unless I'm completely stuttering like a weirdo. Or if somebody says like a cuss word because my show is clean in iTunes, I'll edit that out. Or I try to edit out like a baby crying in the background if I can. But other than that, I make sure that I'm using my professional mic and that I'm in an area that's good for recording. And that way I don't have to edit a bunch on the back end. So GarageBand does that for me. It allows me to easily edit by myself because I don't outsource that, or I record directly into it. So if you have GarageBand, if you have a Mac, GarageBand is for you. If you have a PC, look for something called the Sound Recorder app. I looked that up on Google, or your native recorder. It's one or the other. All right, the next one, the final piece, seriously, you guys, there's only 6 things I use to produce a podcast. The final thing is called the ID3 editor. Do not let that name scare you off. That is literally just the tag, which means like the background information for your audio. And that's an MP3 file. An MP3 file is what you upload to your host. So for us, it would be Libsyn, what you upload so that the podcast players like iTunes can read the audio file. So it's basically like when you're naming a picture, either for your WordPress site or your Squarespace site, you know how you like name the picture something that you want Google to pick up on? That's kind of what an ID3 editor does. It doesn't mean anything for SEO really, but it just tags it appropriately. So you put your title in there, the description of the show, you add your cover art, which is just the podcast cover that you'd like the photo to show, and that's it. It's basically like a backend labeling and description of the audio. Don't worry, like again, it's called the ID3 editor, but don't let it scare you off. It is from a company called PA Software, and that ID3 editor works for both PC and Mac. That's not computer specific. It's just a software, so you download whichever version you need. And I'm going to back up on my earlier mistake. The ID3 editor software is actually the one that's only $15, one-time charge for life. Pamela or Ecamm is $30, not $15. So that is 6 things, you guys. Those are literally the 6 things that I use to record my podcast. And so if you want to get started with a podcast and you just want to pay for a mic, a host, for a mic, one-time charge. Ecamm/Pamela, one-time charge. The ID3 editor, one-time charge. And your podcast hosting, let's say you're going to do the $15 a month plan, which is what I first started out at, that's $140. And the only thing that you'll have to pay on a continuous basis after that is your $15 a month to Libsyn. So $140 one time, and I put in there the $80 ATR 2100 mic. So that's the mic I used in that amount. Not the best one, not the worst one, but a great one. And it's $140. That's all it takes to start a podcast. 6 tools, $140, and you are on your way. I love it. Can you see why I love this medium so much? Here's what I will give you a couple of tips about recording. First thing that I will say is where you record your podcast matters, especially if you don't want to do a bunch of sound scrubbing at the end, on the back end of the podcast after it's done after it's done being recorded. So you want to record somewhere that is not echoey, that does not have high ceilings, that has preferably carpet because it helps mitigate that sound. And if you can, somewhere that has a barrier on your walls. So I record in my office. I am next to a window, but I also have really heavy curtains behind me. It has carpet and the walls are really close to my desk on 2 sides. And so I don't get a ton of echo. Many podcasters I've talked to record in their closet. Yep. I'm not kidding you guys. It's not all professional and amazing. They record in their closet, which is genius because they have carpet in there and the clothes that are hanging up create a natural sound barrier. It's genius, right? And it's free. Hello, you don't even have to go to a professional recording studio. The other thing that I do, especially if you get the Blue Yeti mic, which I love, is I have a towel under my Blue Yeti right now. And I do that for a couple of reasons because I said that this mic is a condenser mic, so it picks up a lot of sound in the background. And so if I tap my desk around my mic, because I have the towel there, you don't hear that as much. It's really mitigated. The other thing that you could do, but I wanted to make this as easy and as cost effective as possible for you. The other thing that you can do is get what's called a boom arm. And that is something that will attach to your desk and hold up your mic in front of your face, and it doesn't ever touch the desk. It's literally like an arm, and it'll be dangling your mic in front of you. It'll be very secure, but it will be holding your mic in front of you for you, so it's not actually on your desk. But that's just an additional charge that legit you don't need. If you have a hand towel in your linen closet, go get that and set it under your mic and take your hands off the desk. If you want to spend $60 to $100 plus on a boom arm, you totally can. Anyway, that is the show that I have for you today, you guys. I don't want you to be held back by tech. I don't want you to be held back by cost. I truly want you to, actually, that's not the end of the show because I want to tell you this. Episode 42, the episode that I did on how to be a podcast guest, I recorded, I'm not kidding you, with a mobile Rode mic, that's what it's called, that I got on Amazon. That is just the way it sounds. It is a mobile mic. I plugged it into the headphone jack of my iPhone 6, and I recorded that in my mom's living room right before I traveled to the Together experience. And while I will concede that it's not like the most amazing sound quality ever, there are a few little glitches, it still sounds pretty darn awesome compared to some other podcasts that I've listened to. And that little mobile Rode mic was less than $30. And I recorded it into the recording app that just comes with your iPhone. Yes. So if that is what it takes to get started for you to podcast, I just emailed the audio file to myself and then put it in GarageBand and added my intro and outro. That's it. If it takes that to get started for you to podcast and to put your voice out there and to go on that journey, please do that. Don't let it stop you. Don't let this tech stuff stop you because you can totally figure it out. If you're interested in starting your own podcast, can I go on that journey with you? I would absolutely love to. Head over to bit.ly/Let's Podcast and enroll. Class is starting on the 27th, which was yesterday. Yay! But you get full access to the course right away. So don't feel like you missed anything because you totally haven't. We're going to have live calls and it is going to be so much fun. That is at bit.ly/Let's Podcast. Hope you're having a great day and I will see you on Thursday.
Thank you so much for listening to She Creates Business. Please take a minute and head to iTunes to leave an honest review so we can help more wedding pros find the show.